Toward the end of another week of shows here on the McFiles on this 6th day of July 2023. We are always grateful to see old friends, and this is somebody I consider old friend. Emphasis on friend, not the old. Dr. Stephen J. Smith, good to see you, buddy. It's always a pleasure. And, I was thinking about this a little bit. We've known each other going on 4 years now. It's hard to believe that. And this show keeps clicking along, and these relationships, we don't really, we blink, and we've known each other for 4 years. It's been a great run, and we've always enjoyed having you on the show, and I know tonight won't be any different. Good to see you. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, good to see you, Chris. Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been 4 years since you came, viewed our facility and took pictures and met all the nurses and people at our place.
Yeah, it was a great, and I want to send a shout out to the ladies tonight and the nurses and the staff there at your office, and we appreciate them. And we love y'all. We've just the show is everything else, Doctor. It goes through changes, and we've been through a lot of changes. It's hard to believe we're going on 6 years. We'll be entering our 7th year in January. It's hard to believe that. So it's been a good run and so forth. I wanted to, we're going to start the show off with a bang tonight. I want to ask you a little bit about the cocaine fine in the White House and get your opinion about it. I was talking to somebody today, and we were discussing the cocaine fine in the White House, and I was telling them, I said, if this would have been one of Trump's boys, or if that had been a Trump White House, that the cocaine was found, you had the FBI basically quartering off the building tonight, and every staff member, every Trump family member, Trump himself, with their hands on the wall being searched for illegal drugs, because let me remind our audience, smoking cocaine is still a felony. It's still illegal. And you and I both know that cocaine, when they're going to trace it back to Hunter, but the media has been silent, and we're going to get some other things tonight, but I do want your opinion on this. Do you see anything coming of this, or what do you think is going to happen with this story? Do you think they're going to bear it? Do you think he's going to walk away scot-free? Because I tell you what, he don't need to. He needs to be in jail tonight. And Biden, his daddy, needs to be right there with him. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I believe it. It almost seems like part of a movie or just a fabrication. It's some more diversion to get your mind away from the real things that are going on.
Yeah.
You know, there's serious things going on, and there's all the, the submarine was a diversion, and a lot of these things are diversions to get your attention away from what's really going on.
What do you think the diversion is? And I mean, I know that you are look, you have been a big proponent, buddy, and this is one thing I've always respected about you. I've never, over these 4 years of you being on the show, you have been very steady, unlike other guests in their views about this. You've not wavered on your views of these vaccines and what they tried to do to us 2 years ago in this nation. And do you think that they're planning another pandemic? Do you think some of these little diversions that are going on, do you think that that's what they're getting ready to do, launch another, FAPO pandemic from somewhere? What you think?
Well, there's no question that they've had several pandemics in the works, but I think it hasn't gone as planned, and I just don't think that enough people will fall for it like they did last time. Too many people know that they'll have to come up with something else. I know they're working on other mass hysteria events, nuclear weapons, climate change, lockdowns, food shortages, something. They're working on something, but I don't think that another pandemic's going to work.
I don't either.
It didn't work very well, but it worked enough to kill a lot of people.
It did. It sure did. Do you think this malaria thing in Texas is false flag, or do you think it's actually going?
Every time they start telling you what they're going to do, then they start propagating it in the mainstream media. I don't even watch the mainstream media news anymore. I scan a lot of different things, but I can't stand and listen to 30 seconds of it because it's just total propaganda, not news at all. And I think a lot of people are figuring that out. A lot of people I finally cut my cord on my direct TV this week. We had some construction, wires got cut, and I started re-establishing things, and it's like, you don't need it anymore. Everything's streaming and on apps.
That's so true.
And I think the mainstream media that they've used to mind control people is now coming back to bite them because they just can't censor it fast enough.
No, they can't.
The instantaneous internet, I was talking to some people today about if there hadn't been censorship during the pandemic, it never would have happened at all because too many people would have gotten information out.
Absolutely right.
Again, we've talked about this. We heard about the banks being too big to fail. Well, the pandemic is the crimes are too big to prosecute.
So true.
That's been my motto because it's so pervasive. I hope that the people that need to be prosecuted will one day receive the justice they deserve.
You need to say that again. The banks said it was too big to fail, but the crimes are too big to prosecute. I think that's a T-shirt coming on, man. That's worth a McFiles fundraising special. We could probably sell 1,000 of those right tonight, just like that.
Look how many businesses threatened people with loss of employment, which was totally illegal. You know, it was illegal and unconstitutional on many levels, but the emergency use authorization that we've talked about, it considered the shots, which aren't vaccines, the shots, the mask, and the tests, the fraudulent PCR tests, all those were considered experimental and required informed consent, including masks.
That's right.
And it was totally ignored. That was a federal law. The 2003 case, the Supreme Court already ruled on, the John Doe #1 versus Rumsfeld, which that was over the anthrax vaccine in the Middle East during the Middle East War. And the Supreme Court ruled that individuals cannot be coerced or forced to take experimental treatments. They can't be threatened with loss of employment, including military personnel. That was ignored. And then just the basic right to informed consent for any medical procedure. Those are three things right there, and there's others, but those are three main things right off the bat. That see, any major employer that forced that on employees with loss of employment should be prosecuted.
Amen. I totally agree with that. And that's where you sort of were headed, where I was headed with this. Do you think that there's going to be any legal recourse for people, and including military people, Doctor? This went into the military. There's people that lost their military pensions and careers over this thing too. It wasn't just the private sector.
The people that stood up for their rights and were terminated need to be restored, and they need to also have compensation. And they need to be restored into the military if they want to be in, but certainly with their benefits.
Do you think any of these tort lawyers got the balls enough to do it?
Well, Chris, this is the thing. We've been on Admiralty law since 1871. The rule of the British Crown. And it's run by pirates who steal your booty. So the country is founded on common law of the land. And we need to get back to the common law, because common law respects property rights and individual rights, parental rights, medical freedom, all those things. But the property rights and the right to move freely, all those things need to be restored. But really, the property rights, there's a lot of government agencies. I've been dealing with some things, but a lot of these three-letter agencies are masquerading as government agencies, and they're really not. They're private corporations masquerading as government agencies. Like the Federal Reserve, not a government agency, a private corporation. The IRS, it's a trust that's registered in Puerto Rico, not a government agency. It's the collection agency for the Federal Reserve.
Pretty much.
TVA is a private corporation. Do you know that?
No, I did not know. That's here in Tennessee.
The TVA Act of 1933 under Roosevelt, it was founded as a private corporation. They masquerade as a government corporation.
Wow.
So there are a lot of these things are really that we've been defrauded for years, and we need to get back to common law.
Yeah, I agree with in principle everything you're saying. I guess I think most people out here tonight listening to this are asking what all of us ask: what is the remedy? You're right. We need to get back to these things, but is there any political will? Is there any justice will? Is there any force in this country that can swing this back to those things outside the election box?
Yeah, well, a lot of people have been saying the only way is the military, and I think that's correct, because we can't have another election until the election system is fixed.
That's true.
And my prediction is that we're not going to have a 2024 election as scheduled. I just don't see it happening. It can't happen because we haven't fixed the voting systems yet.
Well, we didn't fix 2020. We let 2020 just pass on by.
2020 still has to be fixed, or we'll never have a country.
We'll never have a country. I'll agree. I'm with you 1,000% on that. And Doc, I understand this and I get it. I don't know how to fix it though, because again, other than just basically removing all these crooked Secretary of States, because these are state issues. The elections are, on the state level. Federal government has some say in it, but it's mainly the states. But if you don't get these crooked election officials out, and these election supervisors and these Secretary of States, like one in my home state of Georgia, who's nothing but a Republican rhino, and his pal Kemp is right there with him, Brian Kemp. But other than that, I mean, and I think some of the, what I've been telling our people is to basically, get involved down in your local election precincts, get involved, sign up to work those polls, watch those polls, hold these people accountable because they don't like scrutiny. And if you're putting scrutiny on them, they will buckle. Look, I will give you some kudos, and a lot of people may or may not know this. I know this because I was out there with you. You had a lot to do with the taking down of the COVID mandate in Tennessee because you went after the source of the problem, the health department. But I tell you, I was right there with you that October afternoon. I think it was 2020, and man, y'all were giving it. Y'all were flat out giving it, and the pressure that y'all put on the state caused that to crumble. We got to do the same thing about these elections. I feel that's the same kind of thing that we got to do, pressure our state legislators and our state officials to make sure these elections are legitimate. Am I close on that?
Absolutely. Well, the whole system's corrupt. We need a whole new system, but I think we need to do away with the party system. It needs to be individuals because the party system, it's two sides of the same coin. Both parties are corrupt. They don't represent the people. We've got to get the black money, dark money out of the campaigns, and certainly term limits have to be instituted.
Yeah.
Serving in the government was never meant to be a career, and it's turned into
absolutely
indentured servants.
Absolutely. I want to shift gears on you a little bit, come back to the medical stuff. And you sent me a text today, and you said that something about the Wuhan lab. I want you to sort of delve into that because you've got some things you've been looking at, researching regarding the source of the COVID again. And talk to us a little bit about that. Most people that are here tonight have been listening to you for the last few years, but there may be one or two that have never heard about some of the things that you feel about this. And I'm going to give you an opportunity and a platform, just sort of speak what you got to say about that, because a lot of people keep wanting to throw up Wuhan, but Dr. Stephen Smith don't believe Wuhan was the source of this, do you?
Oh, no, not at all. So let me just say this. So I'm a full-time doctor, so I don't have time to do personal research, but I monitor a lot of things. I have a lot of common sense. I have a lot of experience, and I've done some bench research. And so I can take bits and pieces, but I try to put it into a matrix of a big picture. And I'm always willing to vary my views of things based on new information. And one thing that I've really been seeing is that there's a lot of people telling partial truths, sometimes intentional, sometimes non-intentional, but some people seem to get caught on a narrative, and I think initially maybe tried to be on the side of truth, but they get stuck in a narrative and they can't progress with new information. And then I think there's some that are intentionally deceiving the public. They'll tell partial truths, but on the big picture, anybody that's still pushing a virus and a Wuhan lab leak is a liar at this point. Absolute liar, because we know better. That's a diversion and a cover story. That we know that the Department of Defense in the U.S. ran the pandemic. We've seen documentation on that. Okay, well, who does the Department of Defense use for their bioweapons? Fort Detrick, Maryland. I have no doubt that the bioweapon came from Fort Detrick, and it's not a virus. It's poison, snake poisons, snail toxins. They've had 80 years of experience with natural toxins, and this the gain of function research isn't about viruses. It's about it's producing the poisons, the natural poisons, and enhancing the natural poisons. That's what it's all about. There's no virus. Spike proteins are toxins. They're snake venom and snail toxins and other natural toxins that occur in the environment. And when you think about it, the snake toxins are, of course, all the symptoms people are having with, quote, COVID are the same things that snake venom give. Wow. The loss of taste and smell, blood clotting, neurological problems, autoimmune disease, but mainly the blood clotting and the loss of taste and smell. Those are pathognomonic for snake venom.
Wow.
So there's no virus. The test I'm convinced that the PCR test had the spike proteins that were in the bioweapon used as the control, so that if you either get a shot or you get around people that we know that there's been shedding, and if you have toxins in your body, you're going to test positive, and they're going to say you have COVID, but it's not a virus. It's never been a virus.
All right. Now, what you're saying is basically what my brother said to me, and he's retired military, and he told me just as recent as this few days ago. He said, "Bro," he said, "these people weaponized. They weaponized. He used the word virus, but I see where you're coming from. They weaponized this thing to shut down basically the country for the elections, but you felt like it was more about the vaccine, and I tend to lean to your opinion about this because I think that it was
It was
right."
about all of it. I mean, it's always multifaceted. When they run one of these programs or one of these false flags, it's always multiple things. Just like 9/11 was multiple things. You know, it was a gold heist. It was tyranny, the Patriot Act. It was invasion of Iraq and stealing oil and gold, and it's all those things.
Okay, but you're still with the theory, or at least with the idea, and I'm with you on this, that it was the vaccine, though. That was their golden grail. They felt like they could enforce it because ultimately that is tyranny. Because we've been talking about this.
Well,
The vaccines were tyranny, were they not? They were tyranny.
Oh, absolutely. But what's the purpose of the vaccine? And I say vaccine, that wasn't a vaccine, it was a bioweapon.
The bioweapon.
The intent was to kill people, to
Right.
depopulate the earth. That's
Exactly
the real
right.
intent.
Okay.
And see, a lot of people still can't believe that something so evil could actually be in play. But that's exactly there's documentation everywhere. If you go look, they tell you what they're doing. Of course it is.
Do you think they're
Been
going
in
to try it
play
again?
It's been in play formally since 1992 when Agenda 21 was formalized, but it's been going on really for hundreds of years.
You think they're going to?
Depopulation.
You think they're going to try it again?
Well, they're killing us in everywhere. The food, water, air. They chemtrails almost every day. All this haze in the skies is poison, plastics, toxins that are coming down on us. How many plants in your yard are dead this year that've never been dead? I've got them all over the place.
Interesting. That's interesting. Before we'll start taking some questions from our audience. I know people, when I told a few of them that you were on tonight, everybody was getting excited. They don't get this excited when they know the Mac Man is just going to be by myself. I never see this excitement. I say Dr. Stephen J. Smith is coming on, and man, I get all sorts of emails. Yay, 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 yay! So everybody's glad you're here tonight, and we're grateful you're here on this live McFiles Thursday night. You said something to me in the text too. I gotta ask you about. You mentioned pizza parties, and what was your take on the pizza parties, and what does that mean? Are you think we got? Is that? I know that's a keyword for pedophilia in some circles. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's pretty well known that Obama had some of that going on when he was in the White House.
Yeah.
And that there's all the tunnels underneath the White House and all the kids that have been rescued from there. And the movie, I haven't seen it yet, but the Sound of Freedom that came out on July 4th, I think that's going to shock a lot of people.
Yeah.
I almost don't even want to see it because I already know what's in it, but you have to know what the evil is before you can beat it.
You got to know what the evil is before you can beat it. That's very true, Doctor. I'll agree with that. Good to see Chris Aquila. She said train derailments, too. Those train derailments have been...
Train derailments, yeah, they just... Suddenly the trains can't stay on the tracks.
It's amazing, ain't it? It's just amazing what they're trying to pull right now. But good to see Sister Mac in the house tonight. Hey, folks, go ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
So a lot of these people, like the Bud Light and all these the Target stuff, it's actually almost every big corporation's part of it, but people can't understand why they would intentionally hurt their business knowing that it's going to. But these people don't care about, even though they may lose some billions, that's small potatoes as long as they get their agenda passed. So they're just forcing it right in your face now. Although I think the transgender stuff is what finally started waking some people up that had been asleep at the wheel, that really didn't understand what was going on with COVID. The tranny thing has really started to turn the tide, I think.
I believe so. I think a lot of these companies are going to rue the day in the Major League Baseball, these sporting teams. And I tell you what, Starbucks got the message because halfway in the month, they stopped doing it and the tranny community all went up in smoke. Go ahead.
It was funny. Yeah, the tranny turned on them. But the thing is, so I've heard some professors at some of these liberal colleges say, oh, these protests only last 2 or 3 weeks. And then they use the Goya and the Spotify with Rogan as examples. Well, those were fake liberals being, outraged.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last 2 or 3 weeks because it's not real. But when these other things are real, there are conservatives that are mad and they're not taking it anymore.
Exactly. Don't you got?
I've had some Bud Lights in my refrigerator for 2 months now. No one will touch them. You won't touch them. You can't give them away. And of course, we don't buy them anymore. But yeah, and there's some Michelob Ultra too. No one sits there.
Okay, you gotta enjoy the irony and hypocrisy of this training community that about 3 years ago, they sued a Colorado baker for not baking them a cake and claimed that he under the commerce of the country had a legal right or had a legal obligation to bake that cake for them if they wanted a home cake. And now, because people are not visiting stores that promote transgenderism, we're not going to the stores, they're claiming that we're the terrorists. I heard a professor say that. They're saying that we're the terrorists because we're boycotting the stores that don't have the trans, but yet they wanted a Christian man out in Colorado to bake them a cake that he didn't want to bake. They can't have it both ways, Doc, but that's the ugly evil and the hypocrisy of this movement and the blatant disregard of anything but their way. They're not tolerant, and I want to make that clear tonight. This ain't a tolerant movement. They want total domination of the country and domination of your rights and the domination of your kids and grandkids out there.
The tranny movement is just another extension of Black Lives Matter and Antifa. It's just another tool of Marxism. That's all it is. It's about breaking down society, breaking down the family unit. It's also depopulation. Everybody you can convince that they're not the right sex is not going to propagate and have more offspring.
Yeah.
So it all goes along with it, the breakdown of family and depopulation.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, once you know the destination, you can watch the journey.
You're giving me all these ideas for these shirts. Once you know the destination, you know the journey. I like that. I've gotten 3 sayings for summer t-shirts this month. Anyway, hey guys, if you got a question for Dr. Smith, we're going to go ahead and take those in Facebook and YouTube. I got a really good audience in the house tonight. We're grateful for you. Cleo from Down Under she says some double down even after they lose millions, almost like they are being blackmailed. You think these companies are being blackmailed by some people, or do you think that they're just stupid? I think they're just stupid. I do believe that some of them are being blackmailed, but I think they're just plain stupid, plain dumb.
If you know how the whole system of the satanic underworld works, and our current government works on blackmail and extortion, they get something on you, and then they blackmail you and they control you that way.
Yeah,
and that's the currency they use. But also, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street own or control most of the businesses in this country and some out of the country. And they don't mind sacrificing, they think temporarily sacrificing some of their businesses in order to get their agenda pushed down the road, because they figure it'll come back. But the money's not the number one thing from the people that are pulling the strings, the puppet masters.
Right.
So that's how I look at that. But I think they didn't really plan on the amount of backlash that's starting to really have an effect too.
I'll agree with that. I totally agree with that. Got great question. This is a medical question from Roberta Foster. She says, Dr. Smith, is cancer, parasitic, schizophrenia, is ivermectin a possible cure for the above? What's your opinion on that?
What was the thing about schizophrenia?
Is it parasitic? Is the cancer parasitic? Is schizophrenia parasitic? And is ivermectin a possible cure for the two things above?
Well, it's certain. I mean, I'm looking at this all the time, and I think there have been parasites found in some tumor cells.
Okay.
And ivermectin does kill parasites, and so there have been reports that it can cure cancer. Also, there's some natural cures for cancer that are out there too, and I'm always reading about those. But I think there's a lot of cures for cancer that we've been that have been censored and we've been kept from.
Yeah, I'll agree. So if somebody,
but that's certainly, and I think that's why ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine were both attacked and censored and tried to be restricted during the pandemic, because it also displaces some of the toxins from the nicotinic receptors. Ivermectin does.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Do you think
nicotine? Nicotine nicotine actually helps lower the toxin load, and because the snake venoms attack the nicotinic receptors, and nicotine displaces the toxins from those receptors, and can help get the toxins out of your body. That's one reason that there were 5 countries during the pandemic that said they were going to be smoke-free, tobacco-free by 2025. So they're trying to get rid of tobacco so people can't have that as a medical treatment or a cure.
Wow, that's interesting stuff. Do you
See,
think?
and that also goes along. That also confirms that they're venoms and toxins. See, in the shots.
I got a question for you about the ivermectin. It was put out there, and you mentioned the attack on it. It was put out there that it was basically horse paste when it was put out there, and that was a false narrative, right? That is totally false.
Well, it is a horse paste, but it's also a human paste.
Okay.
I mean, it's an antiparasitic. It's been used for farm animals and humans.
And humans. That's what I thought. Okay.
I mean, humans, it comes in a pill form or a capsule, and for farm animals, it's usually in a paste. But it also is a topical. It's got it's a liquid that can be rubbed into their back.
Are there any doctors that you know that prescribe it? Because we had a doctor on our show for many months, and they forbid her to basically prescribe it and threaten her life, basically. And other doctors, it's hard to get it unless you've got somebody who can write a prescription for it. Is it? Is it not?
They had a executive order in the state of Tennessee where you can get ivermectin over the counter.
Oh, I did not know that.
And so I know people that get it at compounding pharmacies.
Okay.
They don't have a prescription. Now, some of the big retail pharmacies like CVS and Walgreens, even though it's supposedly over the counter, they want to know the name of your doctor, and they want to contact their office to say that, even though it's not a prescription, they want a confirmation that they are recommending it. So they're still trying to restrict it, in other words.
They are. Cleo said down under, she says the Aussie doctor, she's from Australia, she says there were jail and large fines for doctors who prescribed that last year. And I don't doubt that. And do you think the same threat is here in America?
So the Aussie gave up their guns. And I knew when they did that, that was a mistake. I can't believe they did that.
Yeah. Tony Salamoni says doctors in Florida give it. But I guess it varies from doctor to doctor. You can't, that's not a blanket statement because not all doctors do. I mean, I know some doctors that refuse to do it, and I'm sure you do too. I guess you have to find you one that does, right?
Yes, and I think as more information comes out, you'll have more people giving it. But I think Tennessee really helped, even though, how I feel about our current governor.
Yes.
That was one good thing that has happened, even though it's not, it was a great headline. Like a lot of things, it's not functionally like it sounds in the paper, but you can still get it if you ask people. And of course, you can still get the horse paste at Tractor Supply.
Yeah.
You just have to look up the dose and get the right amount of paste.
Absolutely. Corey Aguilar over on Facebook, she says, Created Lab wouldn't they need to test it before introducing it to the public? And how do they label it to not confuse the public with the real deal? Any thoughts on that question tonight about meat and the way they're labeling meat products?
Oh gosh, I've been reading things where they've now gotten it where they don't have to label this fake meat.
Really?
They don't. Yeah, I saw that this week where they don't have to. They're passing these rules and regulations where they don't have to label these fake meat products. So, and then of course they're trying to put vaccines in vegetables, fruit, meat, everything.
Wow.
We've really got to be scrutinizing our food supplies.
I'll agree with that. I totally agree with that.
And even the organic labeling that people have been using has been altered. It's not what we think always, because some of them are still using pesticides, but they can still get the organic labeling even though they're using pesticides.
Ain't that interesting? Wow. That is very, very interesting. TJ Patriot, I'm going to ask, he's making a statement, but I'm going to ask it as a question. Do you think the chemo treatments that they're giving cancer patients are making them worse? I've always felt that the cancer and the chemo and the radiation have been known to cause more harm to the people than the cancer itself. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, of course, there's lots of types of cancers, and there are some cancers that are cured with chemo, but generally, um, the philosophy behind chemo and radiation are both that they're killing the cancer faster than they're killing the rest of your body. It's a very crude type of approach to treating a cancer. I think, plus, a lot of the cancers, in my opinion, since I've been awake with all this vaccine stuff, just about every adult disease that I see in my office is an autoimmune disease. And
Right.
I think it all starts with the childhood vaccines and then all the, pneumovax, the, flu shots, the seasonal flu shots, everything is a poison now. And it's additive over time. You get more and more autoimmune disease. Look, we get people in their 40s and 50s getting total knees and total hips. Well, arthritis is an autoimmune disease.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
not normal for people that age to be getting total joints. They're just broken down.
I totally agree. Naomi McFarland asked a question a while ago about the food processing plants that have been on fire. I think you talked about that a few weeks. The last time we had you, maybe the time before. Another false flag, but it is concerning that they're burning our food processing plants down. Is that a good thing or bad thing in your opinion? Because what you just said about the fake labeling with the meat, it's about to the point you can't even eat a bologna sandwich without worrying they're killing you, Doc.
Oh, I know. Well, I've heard different things. I mean, certainly we know they're trying to harm our food supply and the supply chain. But I've also heard that some of those fires were in meat processing plants that were processing human meat.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, this is go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, bud.
Well, we know some of the fast food chains have been caught with human meat, which is disgusting.
Yeah. Cleo, another question. It's a good question. She says the Amish seem to be an interesting control group. Is it true that they're not vaccinated and their children never suffer autism? Because this goes back to one of our first shows we ever did, that you basically laid out the case, Doc, that these vaccines that are being pushed on our kids, there have been numerous cases where kids have developed autism later in life, and you felt like,
or earlier in life,
I
all
should
ages,
say,
at all
and it
ages.
was directly tied to the vaccines, right?
Oh, I firmly believe that, and I think a lot of people know that now. RFK Jr. is really an X factor in this next election. Boy, he's out there pounding the rock.
He is pounding the rock.
He found his niche. I think he's a libertarian trapped in a Democrat body. He's driving the Democrats.
Yeah, he's driving it. Well, I have to tell you, I'm pulling for him. I'm not going to vote for him in the general, but I'm pulling for him against Biden. I think that's why they're silencing him. And I saw Tucker Carlson the other night, and he said that the way they treated RFK, Robert Kennedy, is 10 times worse than they even treated Trump. They're more scared of RFK Jr. tonight.
Well, he's got the information. He's won some.
Exactly.
He's won some key lawsuits that haven't been publicized that really have supported medical freedom and also exposed the damage that these vaccines are doing to people. But yes, to answer the thing with the Amish, that's true.
Okay.
They don't vaccinate their children, and they don't have autism, and they don't have the ADHD and all the other stuff that goes along with it. The SIDS. Do you know that SIDS, the sudden infant death syndrome, went down during COVID because kids weren't going to the pediatricians?
How about that?
Yeah.
Ain't that crazy? Isn't that just the insane world we live in? I mean, it's the insane world we live in, right?
The most dangerous time for a child is their well baby visit.
Yeah.
Get all the shots.
And I know RFK is pro-abortion, but so is Joe Biden. And there's a lot of Republicans that are not strong on that. I don't want to get into that discussion tonight, folks. But the problem is that I hope that RFK beats Joe Biden, folks. RFK is nailing it on these vaccines, and Joe Biden would never do that. I think, look, you're not going to get. It's not about their precision on that I care about at this moment in these primaries. We're talking about vaccines here tonight. Vaccines, and he is knocking it out of the park because, as you said, he's done the research on that, right?
Oh, yes, and he's got the data. In a debate, he's going to beat people because he knows the literature and he knows the statistics and the history.
Corey Aguilar, is there anything to counteract autism? It's not a bad question.
Well, some people have done some detoxes. that have shown some improvement. Chlorine dioxide, and there's other heavy metal detoxes. I've seen reports, they're anecdotal reports, but what do you got to lose? You try. And there's different grades too, different severity. There's certainly people that are born more susceptible to the vaccines and the aluminum that's in them and the other toxins. But if you will go and look, just pick any of the childhood vaccines and go look at what is in the ingredients. And of course, we can't even trust that they're telling us all the ingredients anymore, because we know they're trying to kill us. So if they're trying to kill us with these COVID shots, then anything that they do is not trustworthy.
Yeah.
But at least just look at what's published that's in a vaccine. There's not one thing in there that's good for you. Not one thing.
Right.
The whole concept is that man is better than God at making your immune system fight for you.
Interesting.
Or, help you be healthy. It's very arrogant. But looking back at every one of these vaccines has been developed by a Caesarean mafia member.
Yeah.
One of the deep state Jews or fake Jews.
Interesting. I want to read a few of the comments, and I thank you for clarifying that in the Facebook room tonight. We're not advocating RFK for president, folks. We're enjoying the fact that he's destabilizing Biden. I mean, look, I would never vote for RFK in a million years, but I think it's intriguing. He is an X factor in that primary, doctor, and I think people, and that's why they are trying to quelch him, because he's telling the things that even the Republicans ain't even out there saying. And look, you can think what you want to of RFK, but these Republicans are keeping their mouths shut about it.
Yeah, there's different levels of knowledge, but I think he's a truth seeker, and I think he struggled in his younger years, and you can see why. I mean, living with what he's lived with, and tragedy in the family, and all the pressure and so forth. Of course, that family has its issues too from their beginnings, but I think he's done a lot of good, and I think he's trying to do good, and I think he is a truth seeker, and I think most of the politicians are bought out. They get money from all the big pharmaceutical companies, and they're going to just carry the water for them. Yeah. And most doctors don't know about the vaccines, and certainly the politicians don't. They just know very superficial things, and that everybody's been conditioned that you must have vaccines to live.
Yeah. Very intriguing stuff. All right. Let's see here. How dangerous are the COVID tests? I think we've talked about this a long time. These tests are very dangerous. We've talked about it a million times, but we'll mention it again tonight. There's a question about it tonight. I wouldn't never more take a COVID test than cut my tongue out.
Well, what's it testing for? First of all,
exactly.
It's not testing for a virus. So they're 100% false positive, because they're not a COVID. It's not a control. The control in the first of all, it's not a test. It's a manufacturing process. Never been a test. Never been approved as a test. It was authorized. They play word games. It was authorized as a test, but not certified or licensed as a test. That's a game they play. But it's not a test. It's a manufacturing process, and the control used is not the COVID-19 virus, as admitted to in the CDC paper on the PCR test. So it's false on two levels, but it's 100% false positive. But on the swabs, people have found nanoparticles. They found graphene oxide, and they found some other some lab-made fibers that seem to be self-assembling, and that's why they were putting them deep back in your nose to get close to the brain, near the cribriform plate, where they can get entry into your brain.
Right. We got a dear friend. He's over in India. We call him Vijay. Very, very, very sweet brother. He just posted in Facebook tonight. India's listening to you tonight. He says, my dad had 6 cycles of chemotherapy for 2 times in 6 years. So, Doc, they push this chemotherapy on these cancer patients quite a bit, even overseas.
What kind of cancer? I mean, there are, the lymphomas have had pretty good success with chemo, but generally the chemo, destroys your immune system also.
Right.
So even if you get cured short term, they don't talk about cures much. They really talk about 5-year survivals for cancer patients. It's because most people I've either known or followed as a doctor that have had cancer, it seems like most of them end up getting a relapse at some point.
They do. They really do. I got a question for you, and I'm glad you brought that up. When you said that, it fired up a question in my mind. What will it take for people to wake up to the reality of the vaccination being an absolute BS bullshit fraud than the figures that are out there? Maybe you can shed light on this. Of the ones out there that have been vaccinated 2, 3, 4, 5 times and still got COVID multiple times, not just once, but they got it again and again, because that was the other lie they told us, that you can't get it once you've had it. Once you get vaccinated, you can't get it. Doc, that's all been proven wrong. And again, whether you believe it's a virus or not, that's a whole different issue. But the toxin, the poison, that sort of goes to your theory that it's all poisonous. Because if it's a poison, it don't matter how many times they vaccinate you, it ain't going to vaccinate you from the poison, will it?
Well, no, it gives you the poison. It makes you sicker. That's how you get COVID. That's what COVID is the shot.
That's right.
It's the poison. COVID is the poison.
COVID is the poison.
It's not a virus. No one to this day can show you a virus. It has never been a virus. It's a complete lie.
Yeah. 5G technology. Sandra Hicks is asking that question. How does it affect us? It's not good, is it? 5G is not good.
Well, what I've read about it, it's not good, and there are patents on these things.
Right.
Thousands of patents on nanotechnology, connecting brain to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and the 5G wavelength is synergistic with these nanoparticles. And I've seen videos where people connect. They can show you on their phone a Bluetooth IP address for somebody's brain that's in that room. I've seen it, and it's frightening.
Yeah.
And there's patents. It's not conspiracy theory. There are patents on this stuff. And see, patents shouldn't be allowed on things like that.
I totally agree.
But see, the deep state people, they control the patent office too.
That's very true. That's very true. Let me ask you this. A question about ivermectin's come back up, and Sheila Deese is asking, she says, is it a form of chemo? Is that true? She's heard that it's a form of chemo. Is it a form of chemo?
It's what form?
Ivermectin.
Well, it's an antiparasitic. I guess you can consider it a form, but it's an antiparasitic agent. It's not what you consider a traditional chemotherapy, but I guess you could make an argument that it's a type of chemotherapy, but it's not an antibiotic, it's antiparasitic, so they're somewhat similar to what an antibiotic would be.
Cleo is asking a question tonight. She says she's noticing an increase in impatience and aggressiveness in population. Could this be, we call it the coconut cake, could it be the vaccine that's causing that?
Oh, certainly. We talked about COVID brain. I think that's a real thing. Society was already getting crazier just with all the social engineering and the tranny narratives and all these things. And then, the economy and all the different things, mainly social engineering. So that's a social thing. The COVID shots would be an organic brain problem, which you see with dementia and other things. But if you're getting metal particles in your brain and you're getting autoimmunity itself, it can actually mimic just about any disease you can imagine.
Yeah.
It can affect any body part, any organ system. So, dementia is certainly something that could occur, but any kind of, mental instability could be related to the COVID shots. Yeah. We see it in surgery all the time. People bleed more, they clot more, they have all these blood problems, they heal slower, and we list it as a risk factor. If they've had a COVID shot, that's a risk factor on our stratification for anesthesia risk.
Curtis Saystrop is asking a question. Is there any way or any place that we can get our meat products with confidence that it's safe? Any thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, I missed that. To get your what?
Is there any way or any place that we can get our meat products with confidence that they are safe?
Well, I've started buying meat from local ranchers and farmers.
Okay.
But still, you still have the chemtrails dropping poisons on the land, and you still have, potentially contaminated water supplies where the cattle feed. So It's still, sorry, the dog's see someone. Pardon me, Mom.
You're fine. Folks, you're watching a live. This is what happens when you get live TV. We got dogs barking there. Dr. Smith's going to calm the dog down.
Okay.
He'll be right
He's
back.
good.
There he is. There he is.
That's
He's
good.
back. Oh, you're fine. We were talking about farmers, local farmers. The dog like that. He was amening us there.
Yeah, so I can tell you that the meat that I get right now from local farmers, it tastes better than store-bought meat because it doesn't have preservatives in it.
Yeah.
So I still, and that's one thing, when we get supply chains backed up, you really need to have local contact. Everybody needs to be working on their local networks for food, but also for services and skills that you don't have where you can share and barter back and forth. Just if things get bad enough, you're going to have to depend on your neighbors and local networks.
Yeah. Got a few more questions for you before we let you go tonight. Lisa Russell's asking an interesting question. She says, if we need a blood transfusion, can we request pure blood from a non-vaccinated donor?
Yeah, you can request it. You're probably not going to get it.
Probably not going to get it. That's what I was thinking.
There's certainly a market for it, and there are people that are talking about setting up separate blood programs. But, if you have a blood bank that does both, you're going to get contamination. So you can't have contaminated blood, non-contaminated blood in the same place because you're going to have some equipment, instruments, tubing. You're going to have something where there's contamination.
Yeah, interesting.
But there's certainly a need for it, and there will probably be some of those that develop over time, just like sperm banks.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
The price of untainted sperm has gone up, I've heard.
Julia Carter's asking about deer meat. I guess it's the same issue, Doc. Is there any? I think your point is stay away from the processing of our meats because whether it's deer meat, as much as you can.
I don't think that any of us can escape it totally because the whole environment's being contaminated.
That's true.
But I think you can minimize it by getting fresh meat and deer meat.
Okay.
As much as you can.
So deer meat would be safe.
I've tried to get turkey meat this year, but I've missed the last 2 times I've gone. I didn't get one.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Well, we do have turkeys in Tennessee. If I see them around, they're starting to get out around this time of the year into November. So I tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to call you up, and we're going to go in the car, and we'll have to go in the dead of night, of course, with goggles on, then X-ray, and we'll find us our own turkey meat, Doc, and that'll be our little secret between the two of us. Buddy, it's good stuff tonight. Thank you for being with me. I'm going to give you about 3 or 4 minutes. You got any final thoughts before we wrap it up? Good. This audience is on the ball. I watch these questions, and there's some good questions that come.
Oh no, those are all great questions. That tells you that they're awake and they're reading and they're learning.
Yeah.
But you just got to keep sharing information. The way you beat these people is we outnumber them by millions, and so every peaceful protest, resistance. But you can't sit on the sidelines anymore. Everybody has to be active. We talked about that. When you see things that are wrong in your world, you have to stand up to them. And people have to know the laws. I just ordered 3 law books this week. One of them's on common law, but the others are the Black's Law book. If you look at some of the definitions in the Black's Law dictionary, you'd be shocked at what the legal definitions of some things are that we've assumed. And admiralty law is just criminal law, and we've been under that since Ulysses Grant sold the country to the British Crown in 1871 after the Civil War. And they secured the debt of the country with the birth certificates of the people in our country.
Yeah.
Our birth certificates are the collateral. I mean, we've been scammed so bad for hundreds of years.
We just celebrated Independence Day a couple of days ago. I got one final question for you as we go out here tonight. How close are we to losing this freedom that the forefathers fought for with blood nearly 250 years ago? Because we are precariously close to losing our freedom, ain't we?
I think we're hanging by a thread, and we haven't been as free as we've thought. When you start finding out a lot of these things, like that the Federal Reserve is not federal and it's not a reserve, it's a private corporation. and our taxes have been going to the British Crown, and the taxes are illegal, and the IRS is a collection agency for the Fed.
Right.
They're not even a government agency. We've been scammed. We shouldn't be paying taxes to our government.
Yeah, well, I'll agree with that.
And see, the admiralty law doesn't respect property rights. You don't own your house even if you have no debt on it, because if you pay tax on it every year and you don't pay your tax, they come and take your house.
They can come get it. That's exactly right. That's a great point. If you don't pay your property tax, even though you're debt free, the government can come seize your, and the IRS, if you owe them money for taxes unrelated to your house, they can seize your property, correct?
Well, they're a collection agency, and so when you know that, it makes sense. You know, they say they're getting 87,000 more agents that are going to be armed. Well, that's a collection agency. That's not a government
collection agency. That's a great point.
Uh-huh.
The IRS is a collection agency. That's another T-shirt coming. We got so many good T-shirts coming this summer for our fundraiser, and you thank Dr. Stephen J. Smith for these great sayings that you're going to see on them. But it's always a pleasure, and I hope to get to see you in person this summer soon, in a few weeks. And our gracious thanks to you tonight for being with me tonight. Always a pleasure. Thank you. I know it's late. I know you after a hard day to have to come sit here and listen to me ask you a bunch of questions, and the audience do the same. We deeply appreciate your insight to this, and I really do thank you for that and your friendship as well, buddy. And I'm going to let you go now, but listen, thank you so much. Anything final before we say goodnight?
No, just keep the faith, keep praying, and try to raise the water level around yourself and all the people you know.
Amen.
Different people need different encouragement, but just be living examples. But you got to stand up and be strong.
Stand up and be strong. Buddy, God bless. I hope you have a great evening. Thank you again. Have a great weekend.
All right. Good night.
Dr. Stephen Smith, everybody. Put some fire in that house for him. Good stuff there. We appreciate him, and we hope that you enjoyed this interview tonight. We're not going to keep you too long on this Thursday night, this late night Thursday. Did you enjoy him again? I tell you what, he has been a stalwart, and we're grateful for him, and thank you again. Sonia, your question about the metformin for diabetes, I will save that for another time. I will tell you, I was on that medication about 7 years ago now, and it didn't do much for me. Others have taken it, and it does some things, but we don't give medical advice on the show. I would strongly suggest that you take that up with a doctor. We don't give medical advice about medicines and so forth. I would just say it depends on your local doctor and what he tells you to do. And, you have to pray about what your doctor tells you and whether you want to do it or not. But we do not, I can't answer that in an affirmative or a negative. I would just say check with your doctor and make sure you get his advice, because it's professional. We're not professional doctors here. And Dr. Smith is not into that kind of medicine anyway. He is a surgeon here in town, and a dear friend of the McFiles, and a dear friend of Christopher Wayne McDonald, and I'm grateful for him tonight. And I really don't have much to add. I mean, and I'm grateful. Look, Dr. Smith is here to express his opinions, and we tell you this both with any guest. Their opinions are their opinions, and we at times may not see totally eye to eye on every jot and tittle that somebody comes on our show and says, but I will tell you this, I agree in principle with 98% of what he's saying. He's got the right fight. He's fighting the right fight, and he's fighting for the right cause, and that's why he will always be a guest on our show. I don't have to agree with him on every jot and tittle for that to take place, and I don't think anything he says to you out there is harming you, and that's another reason we have him. But we do advise you to take his opinion as such, and you form your own opinion about these things and be blessed doing it. But we're grateful for his friendship, and we're grateful for his insight. We've been knowing him. I said we met him for the first time in the summer. I believe it was late summer, maybe early fall of 2019. Got a request from one of his staff there, dear friend, and she asked us to come do some photos. And we came, and our friendship has been solid ever since, and we've been grateful for him each night here on the McFiles program and network. McFiles.org is our website, and we will see you. The next show will be our Faith Network in the morning. We'll be on there. We have a morning Bible study. We encourage you to come over there to the Faith Network and join us. We're talking about creation. It's getting good. And tomorrow's will be good, and then we'll see about tomorrow night. But next show officially will be Sunday morning, Sunday night, and then we'll be back Monday for our full week of shows. We got some recorded interviews. We got some new guests, some old guests coming. Still, we got Marcia Montenegro coming back, Chris J.D. Hall. She's the constitutional lady, and the Supreme Court has had a lot of recent decisions that we're going to run by her and get her take on it. And we had Brad Johnson on this past week. We're going to have James Keever back. James is he's Brad Johnson, less the daft imbecile. Brad gave us a new word Thursday night, and I'm still laughing at it every time I say it. You're a daft imbecile. And James is a little less daft imbecile. He won't say something like that. James is Brad Johnson with less edge, but he's a good guy. Both of them are good guys. Brad's my buddy. And he always has me laughing. Sometimes he don't have me laughing with some of the stuff he tells me I can't even say. But anyway, we're grateful for all these guests, folks, and we thank you all for being on this journey with us tonight. It's 10:15. I'm going to let you go now. I do want to say, folks, we appreciate your donations. We don't mention money usually, but we're going to start mentioning donations. We need help to keep this show going. We told our people last night, patreon.com is our Patreon account. That's a monthly pledge site. And for anybody that sets up a Patreon pledge, we're going to give you some music as a gift, some of our music that we've done. We've done several projects. We had a brand new project out. I just ask you to pray about it. And if there's an amount you can afford every month, it don't have to be much, but these things add up. And we appreciate you doing that. The Zelle, chrismac44 at Gmail, if my moderators would put our donation information in there tonight. Any way you can help this show financially, we deeply appreciate it. There's two things going on. We have a Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night faith fellowship. That's a network. That's a sort of an online church fellowship. But we also, the McFile program that airs Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, sometimes with a special show Thursdays and Fridays. And, of course, we do a Saturday night sing, but that's part of it too. All of this works together. But our network in general still needs your help financially. To keep, we don't charge for content. We never have, we never will. We've not had sponsors on the show for almost 3 years now. And I'm fighting that. I don't want to bring sponsors back, to be honest with you. I'd rather just keep it the way we're doing it. Keep it free. Just live and die on the donations and the goodwill offerings of the folks out there. Because really, that's how the Lord showed me how to do it at the beginning. And I want to stay with that because I want to be in line with what He's pleased with. So just pray about that. That's all I got to say about it. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. We're not going to offer you some scheme to get rich. It ain't a get-rich-quick scheme. It's just out of the goodness of your heart. You want to help the McFiles stay airing, please do it. And we deeply appreciate whatever amount you can help us with. We're grateful for. And we want to thank everybody for those that have done that already on a monthly basis. And also when you just send a check in the mail and just say, hey, this is for the show, we deeply are gracious to you for it. Small or great amount, doesn't matter. But we do appreciate all of you. And some of you have been very, very generous with the big amounts, the great amounts. Some of you went way beyond. I know what you probably can do, but you're doing it to help the show, and I'm deeply grateful for you. I really am. But check us out, paypal.me/the McFiles, patreon.com/the McFiles. Venmo is the McFiles Chris, cash.app/$the McFiles, and P.O. Box 23921 Knoxville 37933. Well, I know it's been the 4th of July week. We've sort of been a sketchy schedule this week, but we've had some good shows. Tonight was a great show. We had a good show Tuesday night for the July 4th event. And Monday night, we didn't have a show, but we'll be back to sort of normal programming next week. And we appreciate you being with us. And we'll have guests next week. And I may rant one night. We haven't done a this and that show. I will tell you a couple of things. I just got to throw this out there for about 2 minutes, and then we're going to let you go. Something probably in August is coming in September that we're going to start a daily newscast. We're not sure what time it will be. but it's going to deal with the headlines of the day. There'll be no chat. The chat will be turned off, but you can tune in, and it will be sort of a Rush Limbaugh type commentary. We'll have phone interviews. We may even call people on the phone to talk about the headlines. We don't know how long it'll last. It may last an hour, hour and a half, but it's strictly sort of like the Ron Edwards show, that we deal with the news of the day, and then we'll have the regular McFiles show at night. So we're looking at doing something in addition to what we're already doing. We're getting into election season, and it's going to be very necessary to do that. It's going to be some extra work, so just keep that in mind and help us by your attendance. And it will not be an interaction thing. It'll strictly be a news program, and we're trying to get on K-Star Radio. We're really trying to get a program on K-Star Radio and some overseas networks as well. So just keep that in mind, and that'll be coming later this summer, early fall, and it will be something at McFiles.org. There's a lot of people that I get emails from that say, I can't find you no more. You still broadcasting? We've been broadcasting nonstop, folks. We've never stopped broadcasting. We're still here. Just got to find us. Best way to find us is that website underneath my Christopher McDonald Live name, the McFiles.org. That's got a link to every single platform we're on. I'm praying about going back on Rumble. I really don't like Rumble for some reasons I won't get into tonight. But I'm praying about it because I know a lot of you like us on Rumble. We are on BitChute. We're on Telegram. We got a Telegram page. And that Telegram War Room, we update every day now. You're getting headlines every day. And we're going to do a verbal show. And I may not even be live. I may you just hear my voice on this news show. And it'll strictly be a news event, sort of like our online radio show. So keep that in mind. It's coming maybe later this summer into the fall. And we're going to try to do it 5 days a week, but I can't promise that just yet. But we are definitely going to do at least 2 or 3 times a week with the headlines during the week and keep you more updated on a live basis than we've been doing, and so forth. All righty. You know, that's all I got tonight. I got a lot more, but I'm out. And we hope that you've had a good show with Dr. Smith tonight. I thought about him this afternoon, and he just came to me, and I checked him into him, and I said, can you come on tonight? And he was gracious. And he worked today, so I know he's got to be tired coming on this show after that. He's always done that. He's never said no to me when I've asked him to come on, and I deeply appreciate him. And I do thank you for your questions out there tonight. Thank you. Y'all did great. Good stuff tonight. I will see you manana in the morning on the Faith Network, and after that we'll figure out what we're going to do the rest of the weekend, but definitely we'll see you Sunday morning, Sunday night. That's our faith shows, and then we'll be right back at it next week. We got some great guests coming, and me running my mouth a few nights in addition to that. So that'll be worth the popcorn. That'll be worth the price of admission, which is free, and we'll give you your money back. If you don't like it, we'll even give you your money back. You can't beat that. And that's why you love the McFiles. And that is why we love you. And we're grateful that you're here tonight. Have a good one. Thank you, Dr. Smith. Great stuff tonight. Good night, everybody. And Hunter Biden, pick up the cocaine at the White House.